Tim. Thank you so much for being with us to celebrate our 22nd Happiness Happens month this August. So, as we discussed, we're going to go over each of the 31 types of happiness, and you have been gracious to share be one of our contributing storytellers. So again, thank you for being here. For those who don't know, Tim is kind of one of my speaking coaches. He's my main speaking coach. So if you see me post his post, that's why. And if you see the $sign, you may have seen it on my Facebook page or LinkedIn or wherever. So again, thank you for being here.
I am happy to go figure. And I love what you're doing, Pamela. I love this whole idea of bringing more happiness into the world. One day at a time, 1 month at a time, and let's keep this movement going.
Well, exactly, because you can repeat these. If you don't get to see them in August, you can watch all of these videos any other day of the year that you need a little inspiration. So the first thing is there's 31 types of happiness. And so I'm asking each person to give us a different story for a different type of happiness. And for you, I asked if you'd share a story about when your enthusiasm brought you some happiness, because I know you do that with your students. I know you do that when you speak on stage. So you exude enthusiasm, and I don't know if that's 24/7. I know you were a magician in a previous life. And so I'm not sure enthusiasm came out through that. But like I said, you do seem to have this enthusiastic personality. So if you have a story about that, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, I sure do. You know, I looked into the word enthusiasm, and it actually means inspired by or possessed by a god, right? Entheos is sort of the root of this idea. And it just kind of, to me, that means an idea or something sinks its teeth into you, and then you just can't let it go. So, it's borderline for me, kind of an obsessive sort of feeling. When I'm really enthusiastic about something, I really do sink my teeth into it. So, for me, that first story was growing up. Growing up, my mother was an accountant. My older brother went off to college. He became a sound engineer. My father designed nuclear submarines for the Navy. And I wanted to drop out of college in order to become a professional magician, right? So you can imagine my dad's face when I let the entertainer in me out of the closet, as you might say. It was definitely a hard left from what he was considering and expecting. And we butted heads for a very, very long time. And without going into too many of the details of the twists and turns of the story, I'll focus on this. What kept me going was a few things. Number one, my enthusiasm for magic. And number two, I had a grandfather on my dad's side. I had a grandmother on my mom's side. I had a mentor. I had some people in my life who were equally enthusiastic about my dream. They weren't, necessarily telling my dad, but they were quietly encouraging me, right? Quietly, secretly encouraging this magic dream. And their enthusiasm for my dream, they sort of caught it from me. But it's a funny thing, enthusiasm. When you put it out, it infects other people. And then there are times when you're not so enthusiastic. But guess what happens? They reflect it back to you and they bump it back up. So it is certainly a big part of my story in becoming a successful magician. And it all worked out. It's okay. It's okay. When I dropped out of college, I still don't have my degree, but I have I'm pretty happy in certainly my career and my work.
Well, so I think about enthusiasm. So being a magician is a performer. I think when you're on stage talking to audiences, you're being a performer. So was your enthusiasm initially, do you think it's about being a performer, or did you just really fall in love with magic like a lot of kids do?
Well, for me, it's about, look at this really cool thing. That's what my show was really all about. Hey, look at this really cool thing that I'm excited about, that I'm enthusiastic about. And this carries over now to my speaking business as well. Whenever I stand on a stage, my persona, my on-stage character, right, really stems from that genuine enthusiasm inside me. And all great stage characters, by the way, are really based on the person, right? Based on the person. I say, it's like a fader. You got a fader, and you can turn up or turn down certain elements of your persona or your character. Now, in my real life, I suffer from clinical depression, right? I suffer from social anxiety. I suffer from a whole slew of diagnoses that I've been given over the years that are sort of the opposite of happiness. And there are times when I don't want to get on stage and be super happy, right? Here's what carries me through those moments. Night after night, show after show, speech after speech, it comes back to that sharing my enthusiasm for this cool thing that I want to show you. I'm really excited about this thing that I've practiced so hard. I'm really excited about this idea that can change the world. I'm really enthusiastic about this. It sunk its teeth into me, and I just sort of stepped to the side and let my enthusiasm for that thing shine through. If it were all about me, Pamela, and all about my enthusiasm for myself and my own act or my own ideas, all of that would fall flat, and I would run into the same ups and downs that a person typically has moods that are up and down. So rather, I step to the side and I highlight and hold up this really cool thing that I'm excited about, and I let people into that excitement, and I just share it with them. So that, to me, is what enthusiasm really has done, and why people think I'm so enthusiastic and so energetic, when at times I am still in the grips of clinical depression or feeling really down. So yeah, I think that's sort of a big secret for me.
And thanks for sharing that piece to it, because sometimes people think if they have clinical depression, or they're dealing with anxiety or OCD or just a host of things that are challenges that so many people deal with, their health challenges, that they don't have any happiness. And that's not really true. You can still step in, like you just talked about, when you're excited about sharing something, regardless of sort of what it is. So it sounds like, for our listeners here, if you want to find some enthusiasm, find something you're excited about that you'd want to tell somebody about, and you can just get that little moment of feeling enthusiastic. It might not be a whole day, it might just be a few minutes. We'd probably kind of burn out if we were enthusiastic 24/7. It's a very high vibe type of happiness. But thanks for sharing that. So
Yeah, I want to add something too, Pamela, if I may. And I know we're short on time, but what really interested me about when I looked up the etymology of the word enthusiasm and found out that it has to do with being inspired by or possessed by a god. And to me, again, what that means and what that entails is we don't have control over what we're going to be enthusiastic about.
yeah.
We are inspired by things that we don't have control over. Again, my background never would have put me in the path of professional magician. It sunk its teeth into me. And I think anybody who's enthusiastic about anything can agree that it more often than not, it happens to you, right? And you have to kind of discover that thing that you are enthusiastic about, even if it seems way out of left field. So, I think, again, that is a big part of when people say follow your dreams or follow your passions, follow your enthusiasm. I think there's a big clue in what you're enthusiastic about.
No, I agree. And like I said, I'm glad that you shared maybe some tips for people to find their own little enthusiastic journey, because it sort of follows into my next question about our enthusiasm is somewhat personal, and it kind of puts its teeth into you, so to speak. So the same thing sort of follows for the first principle in my new book called Practical Happiness is personal. So what is like one of your happiness is personals, might not connect with your spouse, might not connect with your siblings or your kids. It's just one of those things that when you do it 95% of the time, it's going to make you at least grin or makes you feel good. I define happiness as when we naturally feel good. And sometimes that's just feeling a little better than we did the moment before. But what is one of your happiness is personal go-tos?
Great question. I thought about this a lot, and I think that my natural inclination was to talk about hobbies, to talk about, I don't know, disc golf or jujitsu or something that I do that makes me happy that other people might not do or, have interest in. But I want to kind of take a different angle. And I think, something that makes me happy that I think doesn't make a lot of other people happy is specifically challenges. Like I really enjoy being challenged. And to the extent where I incorporate and intentionally bring challenge into my life. So every year at the beginning of the year, I don't set a New Year's resolution. I set a new challenge for me, something that I'm going to do every day of that year. One year it was go to the gym every single day, and which I did. One year it was study French every single day, which I did. One year it was read every single day. I ended up reading 56 books that year. So some kind of challenge where it would stretch me but not break me. But I love the intellectual challenge. I love the growth challenge. I love the opportunities that difficulties can bring. So again, I try to incorporate something new and different intentionally to proactively bring challenge into my life. So I think that is definitely whenever I put that out into the world, people are always kind of like, are you crazy? So I think that is something that personally makes me happy that wouldn't make other people happy on the surface per se.
Okay, so I have to ask though, can you share your challenge for this year, or is that still a secret until it's complete?
No, I don't keep them secret. This year, for the first time since I've started doing this, and I'm about 9 or 10 years in now, it is business related. So this year it is a distinct focus on increasing my opportunities to speak on stages and having more intentional conversations and connections within the business space without having a particular business goal tied to it. So, I started teaching this, in fact. I don't have a to-do list, I have a to-who list this year. So this year, my to-who list is who am I going to reach out to, who am I going to connect with? And, hopefully, again, there's some business related outcomes there, but that's not the whole point, though.
No, I love the idea of the challenge, which actually makes sense because there's a lot of studies that show when we learn new things, and that's ultimately what a challenge is. It's stretching ourselves to learn new things and grow and be sort of maybe different than we started the year. That's why it does make you happy. But a lot of people in our heads, we get stuck on that word challenge and we go like, that sounds hard.
Right.
Or the growth sounds hard, or we don't want to do it. So as we wrap up, one of our other principles in practical happiness is happiness zappers are manageable. And I divide them into 5 categories, which is unhappiness, stress, chaos, fear, and annoyances. You don't really have to pick a type of zapper, but I'm just curious if you have like a happiness zapper management tip that you use when obviously you travel for speaking. That's a stressful time in the best of a life. So you deal with stress minimally with that. You've got kids, you've got, so you're a parent. There's no parent that is stressed less. That's just a job that goes with being a parent. So I know you have like some of those kinds of zappers in your life, or you have chaos because, again, both of those situations alone would bring that. But if you have like a story or example of how do you manage some of your zappers, it sounds like the fear one you might have, you manage with creating these challenges every year so that you grow and overcome. So it sounds like you already have like one thing in play every new year.
Yeah. So, and again, great question. I think this is something that is such a big part of happiness. And I love that you basically creating these 2 buckets, right? How can we put more happiness in, and how can we remove the negative components that are zapping our happiness? So, and one of my challenges one year was to volunteer for the suicide prevention hotline, and,
Oh, wow.
and hear people's challenges and empathize with them, and literally talking people off of a ledge. And what I found is that there are a suite of techniques that I've used over the years. There are a suite of techniques that I've shared with the people who are feeling at the lowest of the low. And myself dealing with, again, not just depression, but also anxiety and panic attacks. And those are the ones that I really need to call in all of the troops, right? All of the techniques, and use a suite of them. So I think that is probably my big tip and my big takeaway is, to when necessary, call an all-out attack on those happiness zappers and use multiple techniques. I would say one of my most effective has to do with a sense of being present in the moment, present in my body, not in my thoughts or out in where I'm worrying, but to just reconnect and ground myself. So I'll do that with breathing exercises. I'll do that with meditation exercises. And when all else fails, vodka. No, I'm kidding. No,
Whatever your beverage of choice is up to you.
Not endorsed or sponsored by any particular brand or
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, thoughts and comments and jokes of Tim David do not reflect Pamela Gale Johnson's.
Vodka works for so many. And so does that coffee or hot tea or whatever you like in your mug. So Tim, thank you so much for being with us for this Happiness Happens month and celebrating with us. And we appreciate you keeping the world a happier place.
Hey, we do what we can, Pamela, and I extend that same thank you and gratitude back to you. You are keep fighting the good fight.
Thank you.